So today we'll be reading story 1 from the Book of Virtues by William J. Bennet. And I'm going to just start at the very top. So how the book is organized is it goes by different virtues per collections of stories, poems, anecdotes, and the very first is self-discipline. So I will be starting out with the introduction to that. And here we are. Self-discipline, not much in the way of pictures, but so it goes. And here we are at the intro. In self-discipline, one makes a disciple of oneself. One is one's own teacher, trainer, coach, and disciplinarian. It is an odd sort of relationship, paradoxical in its own way, and many of us don't handle it very well. There is much unhappiness and personal distress in the world because of failures to control tempers, appetites, passions, and impulses. "Oh, if I'd only stop myself," is an all too familiar refrain. The father of modern philosophy, René Descartes, once remarked of good sense that everybody thinks he is so well supplied with it that even the most difficult to please in all other matters never desire more of it than they already possess. With self-discipline, it is just the opposite. Rare indeed is the person who doesn't desire more self-discipline and with it, the control that it gives one over the course of one's life and development. That desire is itself, as Descartes might say, a further mark of good sense. We do want to take charge of ourselves, but what does that mean? The question has been at or near the center of Western philosophy since its very beginnings. Plato divided the soul into 3 parts or operations, reason, passion, and appetite, and said that right behavior results from harmony or control of these elements. St. Augustine sought to understand the soul by ranking its various forms of love in his famous Ordo Amoris, love of God, neighbor, self, and material goods. Sigmund Freud divided the psyche into the id, ego, and superego, and we find William Shakespeare examining the conflicts of the soul, the struggle between good and evil called the psychomachia, in immortal works such as King Lear, Macbeth, Othello, and Hamlet. Again and again, the problem is one of the soul's proper balance and order. This was the noblest Roman of them all, Antony says of Brutus and Julius Caesar. His life was gentle, and the elements so mixed in him that nature might stand up and say to all the world, "This was a man." But the question of correct order of the soul is not simply the domain of sublime philosophy and drama. It lies at the heart of the task of successful everyday behavior, whether it is controlling our tempers or our appetites or our inclinations to sit all day in front of the television. As Aristotle pointed out, here our habits make all the difference. We learn to order our souls the same way we learn to do math problems or play baseball well, through practice. Practice, of course, is the medicine so many people find hard to swallow. If it were easy, we wouldn't have such modern-day phenomena as multi-million-dollar diet and exercise industries. We can enlist the aid of trainers, therapists, support groups, step programs, and other strategies, but in the end, it's practice that brings self-control. The case of Aristotle's contemporary Demosthenes, I'll need to apply some self-discipline and learn my Greek names, illustrates the point. Demosthenes, correct me, had a great ambition to become an orator, but suffered natural limitations as a speaker. Strong desire is essential, but by itself is insufficient. According to Plutarch, his inarticulate and stammering pronunciation he overcame and rendered more distinct by speaking with pebbles in his mouth. Give yourself an even greater challenge than the one you are trying to master, and you will develop the powers necessary to overcome the original difficulty. He uses a similar strategy in training his voice, which he disciplined by declaiming and reciting speeches or verses when he was out of breath while running or going up steep places. And to keep himself studying without interruption, 2 or 3 months together, Demosthenes shaved 1/2 of his head, that so for shame he might not go abroad, though he desired it ever so much. Thus did Demosthenes make a kind of negative support group out of a general public that never saw him. Such ends the introduction to section 1 of the Book of Virtues, entitled Self-Discipline. Tune in next, and I will be reading the very first entry, which looks like it's a poem.